My grandfather Walter taught me to fish when I was 8. His weathered hands showed more wisdom than any textbook. Those weekend escapes from my parents' cold mansion became my sanctuary. When I turned 18, Mom and Dad cut me off for choosing environmental studies over finance, called me a disappointment to the family name. Grandpa was my only lifeline. Never imagined he would leave his entire $3,500,000 estate to me. But watching my estranged parents waltz into the attorney's office smirking with dollar signs in their eyes made my stomach turn. "Of course, we will manage it for you," Dad announced confidently, but they never read page 2 of the will. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe to support more stories about family justice. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I lived in what outsiders would call a picture-perfect home. Our 2-story colonial, with manicured lawns and a 3-car garage, housed more tension than warmth. My father, Thomas, built his identity around his financial advisory firm, while my mother, Diane, orchestrated our family image with surgical precision. Their obsession with status dictated every decision: the right schools, the right clothes, the right friends. My earliest memories involve my father checking his Rolex while half listening to my school stories, and my mother correcting my posture at dinner parties. Shoulders back, Caden. People are watching. By age 7, I understood that family love came with conditions. Then there was Grandpa Walter. My weekend visits to his lakeside cabin became my salvation. Where my parents saw a modest home as something embarrassing, I discovered genuine connection. His hands calloused from decades building his construction company taught me to bait a hook with patience. Take your time, Caden. The fish know when you rush. The summer I turned 10, we built a small wooden rowboat together, each weekend adding another piece, Grandpa explaining every joint and seal. Anything worth building takes time, son. When we finally launched it on the lake, I felt a pride my straight-A report cards never gave me. "You did that," he said, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "Nobody can take that from you." On clear nights, we would lie on the dock watching stars appear. "Your grandmother loved the constellations," he told me once. Said they reminded her that some things stay true no matter how much the world changes. Those were the only times he mentioned her gone since before my birth. My mother never missed an opportunity to belittle these experiences. "Dad insists on living like he is still poor," she would say after picking me up. "All that money, and he refuses to upgrade from that shack." I was 12 when I discovered Grandpa was actually wealthy. Overhearing my parents arguing about Walter's stubbornness regarding investments, I learned he had built his construction company from a single truck into a regional powerhouse. He simply chose simplicity over showing off. "Money should work for your happiness, not the other way around," he told me when I asked why he lived so modestly. "Your mother never understood that." As I entered high school, the pressure intensified at home. My father had mapped my entire life Wharton Business School, then joining his firm, eventually taking over the family business. My growing interest in environmental science was dismissed as a phase. "The Bancrofts are financial advisors," Dad would lecture. 4 generations of financial excellence. You think your grandfather built his business so you could play with dirt and trees. What they never understood was that Grandpa showed me more about business ethics during our fishing trips than all my father's lectures. "Always deliver more than promised," he would say, and never confuse making money with creating value. When I brought home a brochure for environmental studies programs, my mother acted like I had joined a cult. "Your father has connections at Wharton," she pleaded. "Do you know how many doors that opens?" But in my junior year, Grandpa took me to a restoration project. His company had funded transforming an industrial wasteland into thriving wetlands. Watching the project manager explain how they had brought life back to dead soil, something clicked inside me. "That look in your eyes," Grandpa said on the drive home, "that is worth more than any inheritance." That day planted a seed that would eventually crack my family apart. While my parents saw only the family legacy, Grandpa recognized something else, the spark that comes from finding your own path. A man forced onto someone else's road never really arrives anywhere, he told me. Words that would sustain me through what came next. My parents had planned an elaborate dinner for my 18th birthday, not to celebrate me, but to finalize my college acceptance to Wharton. The heavy cream envelope sat like a ticking bomb beside my father's plate throughout the four-course meal prepared by their personal chef. When dessert arrived, Dad cleared his throat. "Well, son, time to make it official." He slid the envelope toward me with the confidence of a man who had never heard the word no. I set down my fork. "I need to tell you something. I applied to the University of Vermont for environmental science. I got in with a partial scholarship." The silence felt physical. My mother's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. "That was unnecessary," my father said, finally voiced deadly calm. "Your future is secured at Wharton. I do not want that future." What followed was less a conversation than an eruption. My father's face transformed from confusion to rage as I explained my decision. "We have given you everything," he shouted, standing. So abruptly, his chair crashed backward. "4 generations of building this family name, and you want to throw it away to hug trees." My mother tried a different approach, tears streaming perfectly down her cheeks. "Caden, darling, you are killing your father's dreams. This rebellious phase needs to end now." I had rehearsed this moment for months, but nothing prepared me for the coldness in my father's final ultimatum. "You will accept Wharton tonight, or you are no longer welcome in this house. No car, no tuition, no trust fund. Your choice." My voice barely cooperated. "Then I guess I need to pack." "You cannot be serious," my mother gasped. "He has 24 hours, my father announced, as if sentencing a criminal. Then, change the security codes." That night, I filled 2 suitcases with essentials, my hands shaking so badly I could barely zip them closed. At 3 in the morning, headlights swept across my bedroom wall. Grandpa's old Ford pickup. He had driven 2 hours after my desperate call. "You did not blink, did you?" he asked. "Helping load my bags." "No." His weathered face broke into a proud smile. "Good man." Grandpa helped me find a small apartment near the community college where I enrolled while working 2 jobs, morning shifts at a garden center and evenings waiting tables. The schedule was brutal, but each exhausted night felt more honest than years of living to please my parents. 3 years of complete silence followed. No calls on birthdays or holidays. No response to the 3 letters I sent during my first year away. My mother, who had micromanaged every aspect of my life, simply erased me. My father, who had mapped my entire future, now acted as if I had never existed. Grandpa never pushed me to reconcile, but never spoke badly of them either. Hurt people was all he would say. His support came in practical forms, helping with apartment repairs, bringing homemade meals when deadlines overwhelmed me, listening without judgment when doubts crept in during sleepless nights. After 2 years at community college, maintaining a perfect GPA, I transferred to State University with enough scholarships to manage tuition. My focus narrowed to wetland restoration techniques, finding purpose in understanding how damaged ecosystems could heal with the right interventions. The parallel to my own life never escaped me. Graduation day arrived with honors in environmental science. Scanning the audience, I spotted only one family member, Grandpa standing tall in his one suit, clapping until his hands must have hurt. The space where parents should have sat remained conspicuously empty, but somehow hurt less than I expected. My first job came through a professor's recommendation. Assistant project manager for a river restoration initiative. The work was challenging, physical, and deeply satisfying. Showing Grandpa the before and after photos of our first completed section brought tears to his eyes. "Your grandmother would say, 'You found your constellation,'" he said, his voice catching. "The thing that stays true for you." Life settled into a rhythm of purpose. I rented a better apartment, started paying off student loans, even began dating occasionally. The wound of family rejection scabbed over, if never completely healed. Then came the call that changed everything. Grandpa's doctor found aggressive pancreatic cancer, 6 months, maybe less. I took immediate leave from work and moved into his cabin to care for him. Those final months gave us a different kind of closeness. Raw, painful, but precious. Between managing medications and doctor visits, we talked more deeply than ever before. "Your parents tried to pressure me," he confessed. During one lucid evening, the sunset painting his thin face with golden light. "Wanted me to cut you off too, change my will. Thomas even brought papers for me to sign." I was shocked despite everything. When, right after you left, then again last Christmas, he chuckled weakly. "Your father never understood I built everything by recognizing character, not by following orders." During his good days, Grandpa shared business wisdom I carefully recorded. His construction company still operated under trusted management, and he wanted me to understand its workings. Other days he would drift into memories revealing family dynamics I had never understood as a child. "Promise me something," he said during our final week together, his hand barely strong enough to grasp mine. "Live with integrity, no matter what comes. Money changes how people act. Never forget that." "I promise," I whispered, not knowing how prophetic those words would become. He passed peacefully one autumn morning, my hand still holding his, as his breathing simply stopped. The silence afterward seemed to fill the entire world. For the first time since leaving home, I felt truly alone. 2 weeks later, his attorney James Harrington called. "The will reading is scheduled for Tuesday at 10. Your parents have been notified as interested parties." "My parents?" I asked, stunned. "We have not spoken in almost 7 years. Nevertheless, they have confirmed attendance." That night, I stood at the lakeside skipping stones like Grandpa taught me, wondering what new storm approached. I had built a life without my parents' approval or support. Now I would face them as an adult, not the frightened teenager they had discarded. I arrived at Harrington and Associates 30 minutes early, my simple navy suit, a stark contrast to the mahogany-paneled waiting room. James greeted me with genuine warmth, having handled Grandpa's legal matters for decades. "Walter spoke of you often, always with pride," he said, leading me to the conference room. At precisely 9:58, the reception door swung open dramatically. My parents entered like visiting royalty. Father in a tailored Italian suit, mother draped in designer clothing that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. 7 years had added silver to my father's temples and a hardness to my mother's smile. "Caden," my father acknowledged with a curt nod. "You look thin." My mother observed her version of hello. The conference room felt suffocating with unspoken history. My father checked emails on his phone, while my mother examined her manicure. No questions about my life career, or even how I had handled Grandpa's final days. Their presence felt calculated rather than familial. James entered with a leather portfolio, nodding professionally to my parents before beginning the proceedings. "We are here to execute the last will and testament of Walter James Bancroft," he announced, his voice shifting to formal tones. The standard legal preamble washed over me until a specific phrase snapped my attention back. "And I hereby bequeath my entire estate valued at approximately $3,500,000, including all property, business interests, and financial holdings, to my grandson, Caden Michael Bancroft." The air left the room. My father's phone clattered to the table. My mother's perfectly composed face fractured for an instant before recovering. "The entire estate," my father repeated, his voice strange. James nodded. As stated, I sat frozen, unable to process the magnitude. Before I could speak, my father was on his feet, business mode activated. "Well, this is unexpected but manageable. Obviously, we will handle the assets for Caden." His tone made it a statement of fact, not an offer. "The business alone requires experienced oversight." My mother leaned forward with practiced concern. "Honey, this is a lot of responsibility. Your father and I can guide this transition for you." Her smile never reached her eyes. Family helping family. James cleared his throat. "There is more." He turned to the next page. "However, I have additional stipulations regarding this inheritance." What followed was essentially a letter from my grandfather read in James's steady voice, but carrying Grandpa's unmistakable wisdom to my grandson Caden. "Your integrity in choosing your own path, despite tremendous pressure, proved you possess what money cannot buy: character. You earned my respect and this inheritance through your actions, not your bloodline. To my daughter Diane and son-in-law Thomas, you chose to discard your son for the crime of self-determination. You have demonstrated values contrary to everything I built my life upon. Therefore, I explicitly prohibit you from having any management role, advisory capacity, or control over any assets in this estate. The entire inheritance is placed in a structured trust with James Harrington as executor until Caden reaches 30 years of age, with provisions for his complete control of business decisions effective immediately." My father's face flushed crimson. "This is ridiculous." Walter was not in his right mind. "Actually," James interjected, "Mr. Bancroft underwent comprehensive psychological evaluation prior to these changes. I have documentation and video testimony confirming his sound judgment." My mother's laugh sounded brittle. "Daddy was always dramatic. But family comes first, and we need to discuss this reasonably." James continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "Additionally, Mr. Bancroft anticipated a challenge and prepared accordingly. Should any party contest this, their potential interest would be immediately donated to the Environmental Defense Fund." My father slammed his fist on the table. "This will not stand." Walter was clearly manipulated in his vulnerable state. He glared at me. "We will contest this." Something shifted inside me. After years of their rejection, they now wanted to control an inheritance they had tried to deny me. I stood slowly, finding my voice. "You cut me off completely for choosing my own path. No calls, no support, nothing for 7 years. I worked double shifts to put myself through school. Grandpa was there when I graduated. Where were you?" My mother's face hardened. "You chose to abandon family tradition. I chose to live authentically." I interrupted, surprising myself. Grandpa respected that even when he disagreed with me. "You only see dollar signs." "You ungrateful," my father started. "We are done here," I stated firmly. "Contest whatever you want." Grandpa prepared for that too. My father grabbed his briefcase. "This is not over, not by a long shot." He stormed out, my mother trailing behind after one last wounded look designed to trigger guilt. When the door closed, James smiled slightly. "Your grandfather said you would handle that well." He was right. True to their word, my parents filed to contest the will exactly 1 week later. They hired Saltzman and Reed, an aggressive firm known for breaking family wills. Their claims centered on undue influence during Grandpa's illness, essentially accusing me of manipulating a dying man. James called an emergency meeting. "Your grandfather anticipated this exact scenario," he explained, unlocking a special safe in his office. Inside were recordings, documented visits, and financial records my grandfather had methodically collected. "Walter recorded conversations where your parents discussed pressuring him to change his will," James explained, playing a damning clip of my father saying, "Once the old man passes, we will contest whatever he leaves the boy anyway." The legal battle turned ugly fast. My parents presented themselves as concerned guardians of family legacy. Their attorneys painted me as an opportunistic manipulator who abandoned family values for personal gain. Meanwhile, I continued working my environmental job, refusing to touch the inheritance until the matter resolved. Character witnesses from Grandpa's church business partners and even his doctors testified to his sharp mind and deliberate planning. His hospice nurse described how he reviewed documents daily between treatments. His business manager confirmed quarterly meetings until 3 weeks before his death. My mother performed beautifully for the court, tearfully describing their desire for family healing and protecting Walter's legacy from youthful inexperience. My father emphasized the four-generation family business tradition I was unqualified to uphold. Their strategy collapsed during cross-examination of their financial expert. James methodically established a timeline revealing my parents had taken out substantial loans against their expected inheritance, money they desperately needed to cover investment losses. When confronted, my father lost his careful composure. "That money should have been ours," he shouted, his rehearsed concern evaporating. We endured his criticism for decades. The legal battle turned ugly fast. My parents presented themselves as concerned guardians of family legacy. Their attorneys painted me as an opportunistic manipulator who abandoned family values for personal gain. Meanwhile, I continued working my environmental job, refusing to touch the inheritance until the matter resolved. Character witnesses from Grandpa's church business partners and even his doctors testified to his sharp mind and deliberate planning. The inheritance brought opportunities and challenges I never anticipated. Initially overwhelmed by the responsibility, I focused on honoring Grandpa's legacy rather than my sudden wealth. His construction company continues operating under the same management team, with my environmental background adding a new sustainable building division that has actually increased profits. The lakeside cabin remains my sanctuary, preserved exactly as Grandpa left it, fishing gear still waiting by the door. I established the Walter Bancroft Scholarship for environmental restoration, funding students who share my passion but lack financial means. Each spring, watching new scholars present their research brings a deep satisfaction I suspect Grandpa would appreciate. My parents made one final attempt at reconciliation, if you can call it that. 6 months after losing in court, they requested a meeting to heal our family wounds. Over coffee in a neutral restaurant, their agenda became painfully transparent within minutes. "We have been thinking," my father began carefully, "about combining resources. Your grandfather's company and my financial firm would create powerful synergy," my mother added. "We have suffered financial setbacks, but together we could rebuild the family legacy. No apology, no acknowledgement of the years of silence, no genuine interest in who I had become. Just another attempt to access what they believed should have been theirs." I set clear, firm boundaries that day. I am open to gradually rebuilding a relationship, but the business and inheritance remain separate matters permanently. They have not called since. Therapy helped me process the complicated grief of losing both a beloved grandfather and the hope of ever having the parents I needed. I learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, especially when the other party shows no remorse or change. The greatest lesson from this journey came unexpectedly while sorting through Grandpa's old workshop. Inside his weathered toolbox, I found a handwritten note tucked beneath his favorite fishing lures, Caden. "Remember that your worth was never about money or titles. Your compassion, integrity, and courage to stand firm in your truth make me prouder than any business success." Some people confuse inheritance with entitlement. True wealth is building something meaningful with your own hands. Keep fishing. Love, Grandpa. Those words guide me still. While the inheritance provided financial security, Grandpa's real legacy was showing me that character outlasts wealth, integrity, trumps status, and living authentically brings peace money cannot buy. I keep his photo on my desk at the environmental foundation I now lead. Sometimes, when facing difficult decisions, I imagine our conversations on the dock, his wisdom helping me navigate challenges he never lived to see. The painful irony remains my parents' obsession with financial legacy ultimately cost them everything, while Grandpa's focus on values preserved both his fortune and his true legacy, not through his money, but through the principles that continue guiding my life. Have you ever stood firm in your truth when pressured to compromise? What helped you stay strong? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone facing similar challenges right now. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and hit that like button to support more honest conversations about family integrity and finding your own path. Remember, the most valuable inheritance is not what is in your bank account, but what guides your heart. Thank you for listening.